Everything is great.
Marty! You've got to come back with me!
Where?
Back to the future!
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough
Plot.
to get up to 88.
Plot.
Where we're going, we don't need.
Lot.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I am Razio.
Square. How the fuck did you let this happen? Okay. You can probably already tell what I think of the Final Fantasy VII Remake at this point. But I'm going to go into detail and give you my full review. Right here, I'm just a talking head. I'm just going to give it to you straight, as I always do. Long story short, there's going to be a lot of spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, watch something else, because I'm going to spoil the shit out of this game. And in all reality, I'm doing you a favor, so you can avoid wasting money on this game if you're a huge fan of the original. There's also a reason I'm wearing a Game of Thrones t-shirt right now, because after finishing this game, I feel much the same as I did when I finished Season 8 of Game of Thrones, and you'll see why. Okay, you see I'm all disheveled, I haven't showered, haven't done anything. I had to get this review out, because I no-lifed this game for 2 days to finish it. Anyway, let's start out with the stuff I did like, okay? Because the stuff I didn't like is going to take me a little bit to talk about. I thought the graphics are great. I've seen a lot of people, it was beautiful, the game was gorgeous. I see a lot of people that complain about texture problems and stuff, but that's just the Unreal 4 engine. That's not unique to Final Fantasy Remake. So it didn't really bother me. I noticed the texture problems here and there, but it didn't really bother me. It didn't take me out of the game. I like the combat system. Granted, I like the original's turn-based system just as much, if not a little bit more, but I had no problem with the combat. It was very fun. It wasn't boring. I enjoyed it. The new way you can upgrade your weapons on top of finding new weapons, but you can upgrade and make them stronger. I thought that was interesting. It was fun. It was a nice little thing to add. Didn't take away from the original game. I thought it was a nice little addition. The voice acting, for the most part, was great. There were some moments here and there, a little cringe, a little anime-esque, over the top, but overall the voice acting was great. What else did I like? I'm 50-50 on the music. Okay, now you have to keep in mind, this is coming from someone who bought the original game in 1997, right when it came out, and I played it religiously till 2000, and then ever since 2000, I do a complete playthrough of the original game at least every 2 or 3 years since then. Because it's probably my favorite game of all time outside of like Final Fantasy Tactics and Chrono Trigger. But I love Final Fantasy VII. It was a huge part of my life. I just loved the game as a kid. It was a huge influencer on my life when I was a kid. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved the music. I used to fall to sleep to the soundtrack at night. Okay, so you have a little more context. Let me fix this mic here. But the music, there were moments where they added, like, because, you know, you go in as someone who experienced the original game, you go into areas expecting to hear certain music, because I have the whole soundtrack and where it happens memorized at this point. And the moments where they added that in, and it was just like a revamped, better version of the original song, I loved it. For example, when you'd have flashbacks to Nibelheim, and you'd have the music playing, the Anxious Heart music playing. It was great. When you're taking Eris to her house and the music that plays in the slums area, fantastic. But then the reason why I give the music a 50-50 is because they started adding some of their own new tracks, and some of the tracks that were added in were, put in. They were remakes of the original version, like reimaginations of the original version, but it was so far away from its core material that it became distracting to me, because I was trying to listen to see if it was the same song or if it wasn't. It was that far away from the original song that I couldn't quite, like, is that this song or is this a completely new song? I couldn't tell, and it became distracting. So to sum up the stuff I did like, I would give the graphics an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. I would give the music 7 out of 10. I would give the new gameplay mechanics, the combat and all that stuff, an 8.5 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. It was good. But here comes the big sore thumb, where the game director, Namura, just shoves his dick up our ass. Starts injecting all this Kingdom Hearts bullshit and completely ruins the plot of the game. And we're going to get deep here. So, if you're not familiar with the original, it was a fantastic story. And what we were sold when they announced the remake, that they were going to be faithful to the original game, the original plot, and just expand. So like more character depth, more background on certain characters, which at the beginning of the game, they did do. The background story with Jessie, when you meet her parents and you go to the top of Sector 7 plate. More background on Wedge and Biggs. It was great. The tweaking of Sector 7 to where you have your own little apartment for a second, and the deeper interaction with the Sephiroth clones was great. I liked it. I thought it did exactly what they said, expanding on the story that we already know. Hold on 1 minute, my dog's being an asshole. Stop. So, yeah, that was fine. In fact, I enjoyed it. I liked it. It was exactly what they sold to us, what they said. But, oh fuck. The rest of the game, the story, the plot overall, was such a huge fucking disappointment to me, and a slap in the face and a shit in my cereal, because it legitimately, they started adding in things that made no sense, had no place in the game, and just convoluted the story, and in my opinion, ruined the story. TLDR, they essentially told us that the entire story and the ending and the conclusion, the climax of the original game was we got the bad ending of a game. We got what was not supposed to happen, which is like, fuck you. Final Fantasy VII, the original, is a masterpiece. There's a reason why it was so good and people loved it so much. There's a reason why everyone wanted a remake. There's a reason why Dirge of Cerberus, Crisis Core, Advent Children, all these spin-offs of the original game could even exist, because of how successful the original game was. And why was it so successful? Because of its plot and its music. I mean, its turn-based system was not revolutionary. The Materia system was great and new, but it wasn't revolutionary in terms of the game design for RPGs. It was the story and the characters that made the original so successful. And in this, I'm going to explain to you exactly why. I'm going to spoil the game for you. So what happens, and I got a bad feeling at pit of my stomach type of feeling when I first saw these whispers. What they are is their fate ghosts start flying around Eris. I'm like, what the fuck is that? That wasn't in the original game. Oh, and at first, I had benefit of the doubt. I said, maybe they're just the ancients, the spirits of the ancients that Eris sees. And those are the ones whisper to her and talk to her. But no, that's not what they are. They're literally controlling everyone's destiny, making sure the plot line of Final Fantasy VII continues on in its normal format, in its normal way. They start shoving Sephiroth in there over and over and over and over and over and over and over again because, hey guys, Sephiroth is a cool character, right? Well, people like Sephiroth. Let's just jam him in everywhere. Yeah, we did like Sephiroth, but guess what? In the original game, you don't even see Sephiroth till halfway through the second disc. The only mention of Sephiroth in the first disc of the original game is when he kills President Shinra, and even then you don't even see him. And when he steals Genova, you don't even see him. All you find is his sword in President Shinra's back. How did they change it? In this game, he shows up many times, just shows up. He does kill the president, but you're there to witness it. And then he fucking stabs Barrett. What? But guess what? Barrett's resurrected. He doesn't die. He gets resurrected by the Fate Ghost because he wasn't supposed to die there. Like, what the fuck is going on? Okay, so then, you go out and you literally go through a portal to another dimension at the end of this first game. You go through a portal to another dimension where you fight Fate itself, the Arbiters of Fate, and you kill them. You fight a god, literally a god, at the end of the first disc. When in the original end of the first disc of the game, you just said, Shinra's done for because President Shinra's dead. We need to... and Cloud's like, I thought Sephiroth was dead. I have to find out more, and people come with you. And there was this mystery about who Sephiroth was. There was a mystery about Cloud's past. Now that's all gone. It's told to you right there in the front. And not only that, but because now you killed the God of Fate, they imply that, hey, guess what? Biggs is alive. Wedge is alive. Most of the people in Sector 7 are still alive. They didn't get crushed, thus completely negating all the buildup they did to add more story to those characters in that zone, because now they're just alive anyway, so they don't die like they did in the original game. And then on top of that, they imply that Zack's going to be alive. Hey, guess what? In the original game, to get all the detail on Zack wasn't even a full part of the game. If you remember, it was a hidden part of the game, a secret in the game where you could figure out who Zack was and see his small background story in the original game and how he got Cloud out of Midgar. I think it was a secret, but I know it was you didn't have to see it in the original. And it made Zack's sacrifice so huge. And even in Crisis Core, like when Zack gets killed protecting Cloud and giving him his sword, was huge. And now it's just pointless because they're implying that Zack's alive. Now, we don't know if that's just in an alternate universe. We shouldn't even be asking these questions because fuck alternate universes and time travel and all that shit that happens in this game. But they legitimately are like, hey, Zack's probably alive. Barrett is, not Barrett. Barrett's alive, obviously. Biggs and Wedge are alive. For all we know, Jessie maybe. It doesn't say anything about her. But, and also that... Eris may not die. It may go on now that we've killed Fate, that the story of all of Final Fantasy VII may be completely averted, completely changed. Meteor may not happen. The Black Materia may not even be a thing now. We don't know. But they're implying that now the entire storyline of Final Fantasy VII can change. And you literally fight the Advent Children version of Sephiroth on a planet somewhere else in another dimension. Like, what the fuck, Namura? You're an idiot. You're a piece of shit. Stick to ruining your old games like Kingdom Hearts 3 and your other fucking trash. How he still is allowed to be directors of games blows my mind. He literally took a classic, a timeless classic, where all people wanted was the original game with more up-to-date music, more background story on characters we cared about to make their sacrifices and their journey heavier, because back then the technology of the PlayStation couldn't show all that. With good voice acting and I'm sure a more up-to-date combat system. I didn't even need the new combat system, but that was fine. Like a more enhanced version of the original game, not a fucking reimagining, a remake. I found the ploy. I found the plot here, guys. It is a remake. They took the old story and they're remaking it. They're redoing it from scratch with a director that can't tell his eyeballs from his asshole, and he's just going to shove as much time travel and multi-dimensional shifts and plot changing that he possibly can. And he's taking them all. I mean, he straight lifted bosses from Kingdom Hearts 3 and put them in this game. They're in the graveyard, the train graveyard, which they completely destroyed that atmosphere and added literal baby kid ghosts and oh my god. It's a shit show, guys. I would give the plot a 1 out of 10. The 1 is for when they, okay, a 2 out of 10. The 2 is for when they boosted the moments that they needed to boost like they promised they would. But it's a shit show, guys. And I'm telling you right now, I'm done. I'm not buying the next installment of the game. They lost me as a customer. Square Enix has lost me as a customer. You can't take something, hype it up this big for years and years and years and years, delay it. You know, say we're not making a remake for decades, which I was fine with. I was okay with them never making a remake of the game. But the fact that they finally chose to, but then chose to fuck us in the ass and say, hey, we're just gonna rewrite all the characters' plots and make their sacrifices moot and make, you know, do our own time travel ridiculous Kingdom Hearts 3 anime style fight bullshit over and over and over and over again to a timeless classic. No. I'm done, guys. I'm not supporting this anymore. So, as a longtime fan, I would overall say, guys, Final Fantasy VII Remake is bad. If you've never played the original, play the original. There are a lot of, you can get it on PC, and there's a lot of mods you can do to make the graphics better. Play the original. If you played the original and loved it, for the love of God, don't touch this game. It will fucking destroy your childhood. Oh Christ, I can't. I'm still kind of in shock, and I'm really angry and frustrated, as you can tell. Final Fantasy VII was a huge part of my life growing up. It was probably the game that made the turning point towards me actually becoming a gamer and an RPG fan overall throughout my life. And for them to do this to the game, how they let him get it, why did nobody stop him? Why did nobody look at this and go, dude, you're going to piss off a lot of fans. This is not what they asked for. They're not asking for a new game, a new story with old characters. They just want the game again with better graphics, reorchestrated music, and deepen plot points that already existed in the story that we just couldn't expand on. Deepen the areas. That's something else I want to hit on too. In their attempt to stretch this game out to be a 40 plus hour play experience, 30 to 40 hours, in the slums and the zones, they literally give you MMORPG style fetch quests to do, which bothered me. I found myself getting bored during those. Some of them were cool, but most of them were boring and lame and had no place in the game. So yeah, overall on Metacritic, I gave this game a 4 out of 10. It's definitely below average. Now, if this was just a standard release on its own Final Fantasy 16 game and its characters never existed, it would probably be a 7 out of 10. 6, 7 out of 10. But because it's a remake of a classic and it's literally just fucking it in every hole that it has and tearing it apart and making it make no sense, just so some failure developer, some failure director can shove in all his ideas that were previously rejected in other games to try to get people to like it because now it has the title of Final Fantasy VII on top of it. Unacceptable. And from this point on, I'm gonna struggle to support any new IP that comes out of Square Enix. Now that I think about it, Final Fantasy 11 and 14 are good because they're MMOs, so they're kind of different. But in my opinion, the last really true Final Fantasy, single-player Final Fantasy ever released by Square was still when it was Square Soft, which is Final Fantasy 9 and Final Fantasy 10. Those were the last two that really had, you know, a beloved story and deep characters that ran with the old formula. 12 was okay, but I couldn't really get into 12. And we all know that the travesty that was 13 and 13-2, which, as you can see, was directed by the same guy, and it failed. Kingdom Hearts 3 failed for a lot of people. But guys, the reason why I'm so upset, the core of Final Fantasy itself, the reason why it became so successful, because throughout its time from Final Fantasy 1 to now, Square never really revolutionized the industry with their game design mechanics. They've been pretty static through Final Fantasy 1 through 10. With tweaks here and there to how magic systems work and stuff like that, and obviously upgrade to graphics as the consoles grew better. But the big thing that carried Final Fantasy was its story and its characters, its plot, and its music. And unfortunately, in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's what was butchered the most. Completely shit on. Anyway, guys, that's my review of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Again, don't play it. If you like the original, don't play it. It's a dumpster fire, and it's... I'm shocked that this could even happen. But... Anyways, guys, this has been Raziel. Tell me your comments down below. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me. If you haven't even played the game, then and you're going to come in here and shitpost, just go fuck yourself to death with the cactus. I don't give a shit about your opinion, because you didn't even play it. Right? You didn't even play it. But if you did play the remake, and... you're a Final Fantasy VII fan and you liked it, let me know why. If you're not a Final Fantasy VII fan, didn't play the original and you liked it or didn't like it, let me know why. But I'm really interested to know if you guys, if the OG Final Fantasy VII people feel the same way I do about what happened. But anyway, guys, catch you later, and as always, keep it real.